TUFF SHIFT. Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of TUFF SHIFT, the podcast where we unpack all that goes into surviving the job and living the dream. I am your host, Patrick Murtagh, and what a difference from last week. Remember that opening part that I mess up nearly every week with things that I wrote? I said that all in one breath without getting lost. Small victories. And I would like to thank my medication, Focalin. Focalin is not a sponsor of this show. And I don't know what to say. Is that something legal I should not be doing? But perfect segue into opening up this pre-shift on another therapy check-in. As I mentioned to you and have mentioned a few times, I recently started on my therapy journey. And I mentioned I'm not going to just, use it as a bit here. I'm not going to be sharing every little thing about therapy, but when it feels appropriate to share updates and experiences that might be helpful, that might be insightful, specifically regarding mental health in the hospitality industry, in the entertainment industry, and just advocating for yourselves. And if I say something that triggers something in you to get something done in your life or to get help with something, like, wonderful. We're going to talk about therapy for that. And part of this therapy journey has been, I've been making little bits about my ADHD and and it's just a joke because I'm from a certain time where, it was just everyone had ADHD and most of us came from parents. And where I grew up, there's a lot of like immigrant background and it didn't matter where you're from. Everyone had similar experiences in their parents being first generation and then they're being the second generation. So we don't do things like all the other families, including mental health. So my generation, now people around my age, we all just kind of like laugh at our ADHD. Isn't it? It's a punchline. It's funny. But I'm not going to not do that. I'm not going to discontinue that, but I'm going to kind of balance it with actually doing the work and not just making it a punchline or something to skim over, because it does affect your life. It has definitely affected my life. And I've officially received my official diagnosis. I have met with a psychiatrist. I have just started medicine. And whew, boy, is it interesting. And it's funny, I've reached out to a few people in my life, my brother, coworker, college roommate, about their experiences with ADHD, and they have been nothing but generous with their honesty about medication, with their honesty about skill sets and what they still struggle with. And this isn't a Band-Aid; it is just something to assist. And it's interesting, just in the first week of being on this medication, all the observations I've made, which was, first I took the pill. My psychiatrist, said you can take it up to 2 times daily. You don't want to take the second pill too late in the day because it may keep you wired. So I literally did everything the first day by the book. I woke up, took a pill, nothing happened. I was like a half hour into it when he said it should start kicking in. And it was like famous last words. This shit ain't working. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I felt, have you seen that GIF of the owl where the owl's like turning its head and its eyes get wide? It was like that. And it was, I'm just being very observant because this is all brand new to me. And I said, okay, the first day I'm going to do exactly as prescribed. Just get that out of the way. And so midday before going to work, I took the second pill and, ooh, boy, it's like that Bradley Cooper movie. I was like, Limitless. Is that the movie? Oh, wow, my brain is actually working. It was nuts. A little too much. I definitely, that crossover, I should have apparently waited longer. Apparently my window with his medication is a little longer. So there was a crossover where I was wired and talking at my coworkers and blah, 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 like just motor mouth Mabel over here. And then I finally came down and I was like, oh, okay, back to stasis. Is that the word too? Is my brain actually finally working? And moving forward. And it was great. And I get home, I have my lavender chamomile relaxing tea. I pop 2 melatonin just in case, just in case I get that side effect of being wired. But I'm exhausted. I'm so exhausted. I'm so happy to be exhausted. Full day, day one of success. And I go to lay my sleepy eyes, because my eyes were sleepy, on my pillow, and nothing happens. Nothing. I am awake. I am awake, and around 2 o'clock, when I finally start to doze off, and through the rest of the night, I'm not actually asleep. I'm in that middle state where you're kind of asleep but still mostly awake. I never hit a cycle, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely not a 2 dose a day person unless it's an emergency. And I woke up the next day feeling like I had a hangover, and that didn't feel great. And so, yeah, that's a lot of information at once and a lot of observations, and kind of moving forward. Um, and definitely showing the importance. Like, if you are interested in looking at ADHD, just to know that medication is not a cure, it's an assistance. And one of the most important things you can do when on medicine is know when to not take it, because you're going to build up a tolerance. This is, I think, a narcotic, technically. I don't know. It can become addictive. So everyone from my college roommate, my coworker, my brother, my psychiatrist was like, make sure you plan on the days. If you're watching TV, if you have a day off, which I would love a day off. I would love a day off. Don't take it on that day. Give your brain and your body a rest and use those days to focus on your skill set. I did notice also, like, separate of more focus, there was like a lack of anxiety, a lack of guilt, because I still was, multitasking and jumping through things, but it was like, oh, I just got to get myself back on track. I just got to get myself back on track. And even in the well making drinks, I just got to get myself back on track. I'm doing great, and let's keep moving forward. And that, just having that burden lifted of being worried about not being able to focus, amazing. So I am really excited to be delivering my first opening pre-shift with you all here on this, and seeing, actually, I feel the difference. Maybe it's one of those things, when like drunk people think they're on top of the world, and then they see footage of themselves and like, bleep, 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 bleep. So we'll see what I sound like in editing. I think I sound more focused, and that's pretty cool. Other cool things, I've been mentioning about getting out of this industry, about focusing more on other ways to create financial stability while pursuing the arts and realigning my pursuits in the arts. um, of all the places I'm looking, you say things out loud and things just keep falling into place. And I reached out to my old restaurant that I left, but I didn't burn any bridges, because although there were things I did not like and stand by them, uh, it's just, in life general, you don't have, as much as my Scorpio heart would like to, burning bridges is bad. Burning bridges is bad. And so I reached out like, hey, if I needed to get out of my current place, is there room for me? And my manager, who's been always great with me and really supportive, was like, hey, we have zero room here. But I will keep you in the loop should something open up. I'm really sorry you're going through what you're going through at your current restaurant. And something was like, tell her, tell her about your trajectory. Tell her about what you want happening moving forward. So I said, listen, separate of coming back to pick up shifts, I'm overall looking to get out of hospitality. So if I were to come back, it would just be temporary and a part of getting me out of this industry. And I know that the owner of this restaurant has lots of businesses, has lots of contacts, has, just a lot of things he's doing and people he knows. So just, I'm a bookkeeper. I'm a bookkeeper. And I'm restructuring, like with my ADHD medicine, my life to be more freelance based, more flexible schedule, but still reliable. Freelance bookkeeping and some administration work if it's necessary, if it's something that a service a client or a potential client could need. And she got back to me right away and was like, the event planner for this restaurant is looking for somebody. I told her, you're looking for clients, and she wants you to call her now. So right before this podcast, I had a phone call, and we're going to be setting that up. So who knows? Who knows what's going to come of it? But I'm so excited that things, like, when you do the work, maybe you won't get exactly the reward you're expecting, but when you do the work, things do show up. So sorry to sound like Mel Robbins, but maybe you should listen to Mel Robbins. It's a great podcast that I love too. And it's just each episode seems to be as I'm doing this work on myself, on creating my own stability for my pursuits outside of hospitality, outside of my financial stability. Information just keeps coming up. So yeah, if you needed to hear that, wonderful. If you didn't, sorry, too late now. But that's been the journey, and I'm really excited for it. I know not everything's going to be a walk in the park. I know I'm going to have ups and downs with his medication. I know I still have like a long road with my ADHD, but I've done it for 41 years. I've done it for 41 years. So I have skill sets in place, and now I need to be more intentional with them. That's that update, right? Wonderful. Some other updates. I want to do some shout outs. First and foremost, hey, y'all listen to Bryce. Y'all listen to Adam. Listen to me. I'm in a show called Parade at the Electric Lodge in Venice. So is today's guest. Isn't it funny? I had three of them back to back as we're opening. Wow, it's almost like I planned that. Parade. It's a musical by Jason Robert Brown. It's a deep musical. It is somehow still seeming like relevant to today in our political climate and mob mentalities, and it's beautiful. The score is absolutely beautiful, and the ensemble, every actor on that stage is just pouring out their full heart, and the wall of sound that will envelop you, the beautiful storytelling that will suck you in and just tug at every single heartstring. Do not miss it. And this just so happens to be my Los Angeles stage debut after 2 whole years. Wow, that took a while, but I'm glad it's here. So come see Parade at the Electric Lodge. It's 1416 Electric Avenue in Venice, California. We open October 23rd. We close November 2nd. Unless somehow my current boss is listening, then we have another weekend, and definitely not a wedding that I'm trying to pass off as a show, so that way you would approve my time off. So officially October 23rd through November 2nd. Tickets at paradetickets.eventbrite.com. I'm glad they cleaned up that link, because before it was the Eventbrite generated link, and it was like .com, and it's like, how am I supposed to share that link? It looks like spam. So paradetickets.eventbrite.com. Get your tickets. It's $25. It's $25, and it's an epic show with a phenomenal cast. The value is ridiculous. Ridiculous. So buy your tickets. Come see us. Shout us out if you can't make it. Tell somebody you know in LA to come see us. Other shout outs? Oh, my dear Preston Scott Strauss. So a lot of the times I talk about on here, and a lot of the guests talk about, the best thing to come out of our time in hospitality is each other, is our coworkers and the bonds made. Preston was a guest on this show early on, and really exemplifies that, because we worked a total of 2 shifts together. He was starting a job where I was leaving a job. And it's just that wonderful time where you're training somebody to work in a shit show that you're fleeing. And so I'm doing everything by the book and being very honest, but in my delivery of the information to him, he got it. He got it. We connected. He's a phenomenal human being. And I just wanted to just really point out, like, just how quickly bonds can be made, like lifelong bonds can be made in hospitality. And so I'm so happy to announce he's doing more music. His music is amazing. Follow him everywhere at Preston Scott Strauss. Strauss, Straus, just one S, not like the classical composer. He's a phenomenal musician, poet. He's so silly on TikTok. He's silly and thoughtful. Follow him there for that. But he's releasing a new series called the Autumn Acoustic Soul Session, where he's doing live stripped down versions of old songs and then releasing some new songs. And there's going to be 5 parts of that series here starting in October through November. And it's just, his music is beautiful, and just, it will take you away. So make sure you're following him at Preston Scott Strauss, everywhere. The first session is out now. And support independent artists. And if you happen to be in Austin, California, and you're following him on Instagram, keep an eye out for his live performances because, it's great on the app, but it's even better in person. Oh, wow, that's a really good market. I should open like a dating app and do that. All right, maybe I'll edit this out and keep that to myself. Anyway, I have spoken enough, and man, I have some shit to talk about the place I'm currently working at and that one coworker. That one coworker where he was just messing things up and blah blah blah, and I was just like so annoyed with him because he had no idea. But then I also, came back and was like, he's still a human being, and this restaurant is still. I stand by all of that. But then I just worked with him again recently for the first time since I had a heart and gave him the benefit of the doubt. Nothing's changed. He's learned nothing. I guess that's basically the story. Wow. This is the second time today. I was in a therapy session this morning and I was trying to give some context to my therapist for what I was about to say. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, wow, that's the shortest long story I ever told. I didn't give too much information, and specifically not information that is not pertinent. Wow. So yeah, that's it. He still sucks. And what you gonna do, right? Let's get to today's guest because that's way more interesting than that. And today's guest is somebody that is in parade with me. We locked eyes on each other right away and just like knew like we're gonna be friends. And so far, the plan is working. And she's wonderful. She was born in San Francisco. What's not to, I mean, she was raised in Wisconsin, but she was born in San Francisco and still supports her home teams. And she is not just a triple threat in being an actor, singer, and dancer. She is a multifaceted. Is that the one I want to say? I'm just tired of saying, multi-hyphenate. Theater maker. Beyond being the core triple threat that we're all used to. She's a director. She does choreography. She does TV, film. She does musicals. She does it all. Where is her intro? She also, plays the role of producer. She's worked as a makeup artist, social media manager, production assistant. She does so many things within this industry, which, some people are like, you got to pick a focus and stay in that lane. And it's like, or maybe you do a little bit of everything and get a better picture of the industry you're in to then have a greater impact on your actual focuses. She clearly exemplifies that. She, like I said, was raised in Wisconsin and graduated from the University of Wisconsin in La Crosse. Is that it? Not in lacrosse, the sport, but La Crosse, I think that's the campus, right? We have like University of California, Berkeley, this, that, whatever. I think that's it. Maybe it's a sport. Who knows? She's very talented, very hilarious, and such a pleasure to watch on stage and to interact with on stage. She's done it all from leading the show to being in the ensemble to really just kind of get the most of her talents and share the most of her talents in so many shows, from golden age musicals to modern day hits, comedies, dramas, all of that. I absolutely adore her, and you will too. So I'm going to just shut up and bring on my newest friend, the one and only Megan Roddy.
Hi. That
Yeah,
was so nice. That was so kind. Oh
it's
my
true.
God.
It's easy when
Oh,
it's
well,
true.
Megan, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate you having me.
Of course, of course. Welcome to the show. As I mentioned, you are doing Parade. What
Mhm.
show is this for you in LA? Is this also your first show in LA, or have you done a whole shit ton?
No, I mean, I had taken a break from stage for a while, was focusing mostly on film and television and that kind of stuff. But right before this, I did a workshop of a musical, which was really fun because I had never originated a role before. And so that was cool to like have new work. And we did kind of a stage reading of it. There's possibility that we do a full stage production in the future. We're looking to get it funded and that kind of stuff. But it's a parody musical, which is really fun. It was all like Disney hits
Oh
rewritten,
wow.
that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I got to be a pretend princess for 2 hours and I loved it. It was great. But this is my first full production in LA. So it's a debut, like kind of
Debut.
with,
I like that.
with a little asterisk.
Yeah, and originating something, is quite an experience. And
Mm.
we've talked about it on here before. We have the goals we set out for are very clear in our intentions with that. And then these unexpected merit badges that like in the for the most part can be found in the world of showcase code and workshop code productions and can be some of the best stuff I did in New York. I got paid $25 for. I got paid a flat fee, small stipend, like some
Hmm.
amazing work with amazing teams.
Yeah.
And, I did one show I workshopped for. It unfortunately has not yet continued its development, but I was working with them for like 5, 6 years. And it just
Wow.
was so rewarding to come back to the show and see
Yeah.
how I grew as an actor and how the character grew, how the show grew, how my castmates grew. So wonderful, and congratulations on that because it's so rewarding, and it's important that we recognize those. We may not get equity pension weeks, we may not get health insurance from it, but it is something that feeds our artist soul. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a really great time. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully more to come. But if not, it was an amazing experience to say the least.
wonderful, wonderful. So let's just jump in here with
Mhm.
our standard first question here on Tough Shift. You wouldn't be here if you didn't fit the bill. So, what was your gateway job into being a walking, talking, singing stereotype of an artist paying the bills in hospitality?
That's very fair. I It's kind of funny because it was like the one of the first things I did in LA was get a job at a restaurant. I My sister drove out across the country from Minnesota with me. We left the Twin Cities, we went over to California, and it took like 3 days to go across the country, and like we got here, we went to Target right away, bought a bunch of shit. Sorry, I don't know if we can swear on this
A
podcast, but
fucking hell. Say whatever the fuck you
it's
want.
Catholic girl in me, raised, born and true, is like, oh my God, I swore. So no. But we went to Target, bought a bunch of stuff, collapsed. And then the next day I went and interviewed at a restaurant that was in a major mall in LA. It is no longer there. It's a Tiffany store now. But I
That's a
went and
clue.
interviewed because uh, if you remember that where that was, basically my roommate at the time worked there, and I was like, I just need a job to get started because I was really worried about. I up until that point had never really worked anything post graduation that was not like full time work. And I knew I wanted to do kind of more gig to start just because I wanted to make sure that I could get some production jobs and take off time for filming and like those kind of things, at least until I got my bearings out here. And so I interviewed there and got the job on the day and walked out of there day 2 of LA with, a job at a mall and in a restaurant. So, and I had never worked in a restaurant before. So there was a lot of learning curve to have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Mhm.
a lot to learn and experience, and which is why, like, when Bryce the other week was like, people should work in a restaurant. It should be
They should.
required so you can see what human behavior
1,000%.
it. You may be wonderful. You may be wonderful. Or you may just think you're wonderful. Uh,
Yeah.
but you really do have an impact on the situation, and so it'd be interesting for people to see. And that was you were a host, you said, right?
I was a host. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice.
Hmm.
That is interesting role to play. It is my first job was as a host. When before I became a singing waiter, I was a singing host at this
Yeah.
restaurant, and it's a hard job because it's not the best pay, and especially if it's not like a tip out position, and if you are in a tip hole, you're receiving the least. And it's also hard to move up because, at least for me, when I was very clear, like, I want to start out as a host. My intention is to be a server. And then when it was like time had passed, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to be a server. And my boss is like, ah, but it's just you're so good. And no lies detected. Um, it's going to be really hard to replace you. And like, obviously, I assumed that. But I said, well, and I don't know why. Sometimes I get these moments of bravery where I'm like, my tongue, I'm glad my tongue went quicker than my brain in this instance. But there
Yeah.
are moments where I just get a little brave and I just say something that is actually the
Yeah.
right thing. But I'm like, if I thought that out, I would be too scared. But I told him, I said, I mean, well, either way, you're going to have a hard time replacing me because if you don't move me up to server, I'm going to have to leave. And so you're going to have to replace me either way. Don't know where that came from.
No,
Don't know
that's
where that came.
impressive.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
All of my 22 years old experience.
I had a similar story when I was 22. I was offered to manage a bank, which is
22.
22. I'm barely above the bank counter. Like, you want me to be the bank manager at 22 years old? And I said no.
22 year
Um,
olds known for their financial stability
yes,
and world
known for
experience,
financial
life experience.
stability, knowing a lot about financial institutions, especially when they got a musical theater degree. Like, didn't even I knew nothing walking into that job. And it was just for me to try to get a marketing job at that time. And that job has multitudes. But at 22, I laid down the gauntlet because basically it was supposed to be a position where you did rotations with like a bunch of different departments. And they kept me just at the branch and didn't move me because they ended up really loving me and customers, I guess, enjoyed me or whatever. And so they're like, "Oh, we just really think this is amazing for you." And I was like, if you don't start me on rotations, I'm done. And yeah, then they moved me to another branch, and they were like, "You're good, okay? We'll keep you. We want to keep you." And I was so scared to do it, but it was one of those things where like I love my family because my parents were like, "You just gotta lay down the gauntlet. They
Yeah.
need you more than you need them." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I have power. Cool. Who knew?" But 22, there's just like a level of like boldness that you just don't get later in life that I'm like,
Yeah.
I miss that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like you're calling somebody's bluff, and the only not the only way it works, but the best way to do it is to know like if they say no, then I stand by my I'm good, I can go work anywhere else. And when you have that assurance, I run my mouth and I'm like I can get a job anywhere, and I've talked so many times on this podcast about how awful finding a job in LA is, specifically in hospitality, because like in New York you get a job right away. And in LA, they really drag their feet. So I still run my mouth. I'm like, I got my 2 weeks notice in my pocket at any given time. And then it's like, but the reality is like, if that was true, I would have left the restaurant I'm at right away. It comes, there's stuff on the table. I can't leave now because I'm rehearsing a show.
Mhm, mhm,
I'm rehearsing a show. It's bad enough that I had to do a menu quiz as we're entering into work because I need to be working on my music and my lines, not what saba sauce is and not what goes into X, Y, and Z ingredient and
mhm.
any of these 5,000 overthought cocktails, which I just took a menu test again yesterday. I've been there for 6 months. This is the fifth menu test I've taken.
Five?
There were
Did they
four new.
change it five times?
Yes, every menu test is a new menu rollout. There were five appetizer side dishes,
Sure.
two main dishes, and four new cocktails, and you have to go in about the item, how what we say when we drop it, what is the story and the inspiration behind it, what are the blend, what is traditionally this blend known for, where in the world does it come from, and blah 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 blah, and the allergens, and with the drink, same thing. What is the archetype of this cocktail? What are something that we do in house to make it our own?
No, I'm out. I tap
I'm
out. That
good.
would, yeah.
I'm
Oh
good.
gosh.
Like, and this
I
is
now
exactly what.
realize how, yeah, lucky I am. I knew nothing about sushi when I walked into that restaurant. I had never had sushi in my life. And
I mean,
I
probably
still got the
safer in
job.
Wisconsin to, landlocked play. Don't eat the oysters.
Honestly, in Wisconsin and Minnesota, both places, there's some good sushi restaurants, especially Minneapolis. There's good food and good restaurants in that area. But my family is an adventurous. We're Irish
Yeah.
Italians. Like, my dad loves sushi, but he was the only one who did, and he's not gonna like force us all to go with him.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where sometimes exposure is exposure, and yeah.
Yeah, and you got there, and this job that was like a little perk. Like I learned not only did
Yeah.
I am I able to pay my rent, but like, oh wow, I'm learning a lot about culture and food and this and that, and trying something new, which is especially
Mhm.
when you move to a big city like this, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You're gonna try stuff that like would make people blush in Wisconsin or wherever you're coming from. So that's
Mhm.
cool that they opened your eyes to that. Do you still like proactively go looking for sushi?
Yeah, I've actually I fell in love with sushi then after. So now it's really fun because when I do fly back to Minnesota and I see like my parents or something, sometimes my dad will be like, "Do you want to go to dinner?" And we'll go to sushi together. And so we go and we have sushi, and because I'm the only one in the family who will eat it with him and like that kind of stuff. And so it ends up being this like really great way for not only me and my dad to bond, but like I now, because of like the rough shifts that I did have at the restaurant, when I get upset, sometimes I crave sushi because that
It's
was always the
triggering.
thing that was yes, it's like
Yeah.
available to me. And all of a sudden I'm like, I really want a blue crab roll. And that's hard to find. A good one is hard to find.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, what kind of sushi am I feeling? And I've learned so much, but it's funny because
And
now
speaking
when
of
I
feelings, how
have,
am I feeling?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's a
So,
really interesting connection. And also a perfect
mhm.
segue you just gave
I
me right
try.
there.
I
So
try. I
you
try.
you said you had a tough shift. Huh. If if
Yes.
only there was a podcast where you could unpack some of that. Do you want to give it a shot here? You want to?
Yeah.
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 Is
Yeah.
there a
Let's,
tough
I
shift
don't
that
know.
stands out?
Yes. I remember it because it was like a really hot day, but it wasn't summer. Like, I think it
Mm,
was like probably late fall, but for some reason it was so hot. And we worked at a major mall in the LA area. I will let people, choose or, theorize what it might be. But basically, I think the difference between working at a regular restaurant and then working at a restaurant in a mall is that you get a lot of people who just like pass by, right? And they're like, oh, I'll put my name down. Maybe we'll eat here, Diana, like whoever they're with, right? They just put their name down a bunch of different lists and then kind of see. So at that job, especially in the hostess stand, sometimes you had a wait list of like 200 people. It was ridiculous. And that day, it was like a new height. I remember it was like 240 people because everyone's hot, everyone's cranky, and everyone's trying to put their name down. And so there was like two instances during that day. The first one was before I had a full breakdown, but the first one was this sibling of a major like TikTok slash like reality star was like, I'm that, and dropped the last name. And they're like, you can't just squeeze us in. And they're like halfway down the list, like all this kind of stuff. Our tables are full. And at this restaurant in particular, there was three kitchens. So all different parts of the meal were at different kitchens. So service tended to be longer because you had stuff coming from the hot kitchen that would be run down. Then you have the sushi bar where they're hand making all the rolls. And then you have another part of the kitchen that's doing backup or like this kind of stuff. And so servers are running around all the time. Everyone had a full plate. We had a 200, something wait list. I was like, first of all, that's not the way that you bribe me to be like, I am this person. Just dropping a last name, which again, I think the LA culture then comes into where you're like, it does matter to me. There's a movie star at that table over there.
yeah.
Like it's
Brad Pitt is right behind you.
right. Like LeBron came in one time and I'm like, we're here. It's fine, but this is not going to pull your weight. But it was like the quintessential like lean against the thing and like, how can you help me out? I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And I was really, it was just everyone was kind of cranky and upset. And this one family came around and they're like, how long is the wait? And I was like, I can give you an estimate, but like, I think it's probably 2 hours. Like, it's gonna be harsh, and I'm sorry, but like, we're really trying to get through everything.
Yeah.
And are we had a policy of giving people like two chances with text? So they would say, your table's ready, you have like 15 minutes after that, and then we release it, right? But since there's 200 people on that list, that takes a while. That's like hours on hours of texting and trying to figure something up. And this family came around, and I could tell the mom had like a little bit of a different energy. I was like, okay, she's having a rough day. I'm going to try my best, but like, we're running around, we're bussing tables, we're doing all this kind of stuff. And the time frame that I kind of allotted to came back, and she's like, is our table ready? And I was like, I'm sorry, you still have like 10 more people ahead of you. Like, we don't have a time for you at this time. And she was like, you said it would be here at 2 hours. And I was like, I gave you an estimate. Those times are subject to change. Like, I'm really
And that's a
sorry. She
pretty
goes,
big estimate. Like that's
it's a huge
pretty well
estimate.
padded.
I was like, I'm sorry, but like this is another level today. Like, and I was very honest and blunt with her. And she pulls her child in. She goes, you're the reason why my child is going hungry. And starts screaming at me. And I look now back at it and I laugh because I'm like, first of all, there's like 5 different places you could have gone to eat. I am not the reason why your child is going hungry.
No.
There's a cheesecake factory across the
Mhm.
way. Have fun. Like, you're wanting to go into a sushi restaurant that's legit probably $50 a plate. Let's say that's on the low side. Like, I'm not responsible for your child, but she is screaming at me. And at the point where like a manager had to come in. And one thing will happen is when people like just yell in your face, I have a gut reaction of like crying, even if I'm not
Yeah.
actually upset. It's just the fact that somebody's screaming at your face. And I was nannying, I was doing all these things. I've worked with children all my life. And the fact that like this woman was putting me responsible, or somebody passing by is hearing someone say, you're the reason my child is going hungry. I was just like, oh my God, like just panicked. And this was before anxiety medication too. So that also contributed to it.
Yeah.
But it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had with people. And that's saying a lot. But yeah, she was another level. I hope she's doing well. I hope her child is well
Yeah.
fed
I hope her
and
child,
educated, doing well, but that day was not a great day.
Hey there, just checking in. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are, why not leave us a 5-star review and a comment or two wherever you're listening to this from? And don't forget to follow us on social media at TUFF SHIFT Podcast. That's TUFF Shift Podcast. Everywhere. Literally everywhere. And just a reminder, gratuity's not included, but tips are always welcome. And you can find our virtual tip jar at tuffshiftpodcast.com. That's TUFF shiftpodcast.com. All right, back to the show. No, and like I just need to say this because my brain is just wanting to jump out of my head right now.
Sure.
Your child is not hungry because of Megan Roddy. Your child is hungry because you need to be right. Because you need to be right and you need to be here at this restaurant. So your urge to be at this restaurant and your urge to yell at a recent transplant to LA, a young, not kid, I know you're not a kid, but a kid yelling at somebody else's child is more important than just fucking troubleshooting and taking your child somewhere else. Like, have the day you deserve, ma'am.
Yeah.
And hopefully, when your child is of age, they have access to great healthcare and great therapy, because sounds like they're going to need it. Like, some people just don't realize, like, your child is your responsibility, and especially in a restaurant. If you go, and I've learned this as a nanny, I've made this mistake as a nanny, where I know what I need to get by. And so I pack the bag for the day, and it's like, fuck, there's no snacks. You do that once.
Yes.
You learn that lesson. What you don't tell the child to go potty before you leave one establishment to go to another, and you make that mistake once. It is your job to do those things. So, and not even have the day you deserve. Fuck you, lady. That's what I want to say. So I just wow. And and again, it's and we've had a few hosts on here. you're just the first line of defense. And you are either, like I've said before, the first great news they hear or the first rejection they experience in this restaurant. And so you get it all. You get people, and you see it all. Like it's like an Oscar winning Sally Field monologue. Like just you get
Yeah.
all the emotions in it, and it's hard to do. I don't know why I'm like touching my back, like I'm
You're just leaning
working on a
in.
singing exercise. Um, but yeah, that's ridiculous. And you are out of restaurants currently.
Currently, I am exploring going back.
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
know. I
What would bring you back, and what would
I
you
think
have going to a place of like these are my needs and this is my limits?
yeah. I think probably that like it could be additional just because I am doing some gig work for social media and like those kind of things where sometimes that's not a full time pay,
Yeah.
right? You're not getting something that can support you, and acting jobs can come and go. Like I have fluxes of highs and fluxes of lows. And so something that could give me like 2 to 3 shifts a week where I'm not selling my soul, I think the biggest thing, what I wouldn't do now, what I did then was I worked 2 jobs that were very high movement. I was so spent because most of the time I would nanny during the day and then I go to the restaurant at night
Mm,
and I do a full, shift. And for the first restaurant that I worked at, it was 2 floors, so you're walking downstairs up on all the time. And the second one I did was 1 floor, but it was high clientele. You just had to like really be on your toes.
yeah.
Um, and some of the time, most of the time they would call me because they would know I would show up and like be reliable. And so then it was like, oh, you're the only hostess for tonight. And it's like, okay, now we're doing the bar and the main restaurant and the dining. And it's just, it was really exhausting on my body in a way that I had not experienced with a job before, jobs, I guess, before. And so I think I know I can't do all the physical stuff. Like I need days off, I need those kind of things. But I think the one aspect I do miss is like I love talking with people.
Yeah.
That
You're
was
a
I worked
performer.
yeah. I worked remote for some marketing jobs for the past couple of years, and as much as I love that, it's hard to work remote. Like there's so many lovely perks of it. And the flexibility is great, but at the same time, you're alone all the time. And at
Yeah.
one point, I lived alone and worked remotely, and it was awful. It was the worst. I really had to put so much energy into like planning out a social life when, like people in LA are a little more off the cuff. It's like, okay, let's go do this. We just met each other out and about. Like there's a lot of it's hard to plan with a lot of like the creatives that you have in your life because a lot of their life is up to chance, and so
Yeah.
it's just not conducive for building community that way. And so when you're out already, you're like, okay, I'm game to go do something fun. And so yeah, I miss the people aspect of it, of just even talking with customers or talking with my coworkers or that kind of stuff. So I'm exploring my options. I loved the beginning segment of your show today because you're talking about putting things into the universe. I'm just putting out the idea that maybe this plan is a little bit different than what I could imagine, but it
Yeah.
might be for the best. And so I'm just trying to explore whatever opportunities kind of come my way.
That's wonderful. And whatever again facilitates the dream. Like
Yeah.
when you were
Hmm.
at, I almost said the name of the restaurant, which I have no idea. Don't slip in my DMs, and I don't care if you Venmo me $100. I won't tell you. But, but
I will.
but what is was it conducive in the time? I know there's the physical draining,
Yeah.
and then and that then gets to your welfare all over. But like, was there a point to where it was conducive to your pursuits as an actor singer, or was it mostly hurtful?
My first year getting into LA, I focused a lot on the production side because
Hmm.
I had never been on a film set. I had never been on a TV set. Film industry was very new. And I am one who likes to understand everything even if I'm just an actor there. And so I was like, let's get on to
Wow, I
sets.
intuited the fuck out of that in your
You really
introduction.
did. Yeah,
That's
you really did. No, I was kind of shocked. I was like, geez Louise, did he like read my mind?
maybe this
Um,
ADHD is giving my psychic powers back.
telepathic. Yes. No, it's 100% was my plan. So I started working on a bunch of sets. And so it was conducive for that when I knew I had these like blocked off dates. It wasn't as conducive for like auditions or even theater or like those kind of things. And so the like live performance opportunities were something I put on the back burner for a while. But I was doing it all. I wasn't really making enough to be facilitating the dream. And that was, I think the harsh reality of why I had to stop two jobs is like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
working two jobs and I'm still not making enough to pass
yeah,
by. Like and it got better when I switched to a different location and they did do shared tips and like, okay, there's a little bit more income coming in, but like still not enough to cover, and
yeah,
you're driving every single day, the gas, even to just take that all into account. It's like, okay, now when everything evens out, you're not getting back to a place where you're stable.
yeah,
You're just living paycheck to paycheck. And so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, if I want to fund my artistic career, I might have to do something different. And that's why I did go into corporate life, because that's where that did actually, fund that opportunity, because I was like, oh, I can go to classes. I can actually, put more work into my craft. And I feel like I've done the grind work in some ways of, okay, done the set life. I've been on the production side. I've kind of learned what I want to get out of this. Now I have to make sure that I get back to what I do best.
yeah. That's
Mhm.
absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's so true. Now, where did all of this come from? This little young hopeful that decides like, hey, you know what? I want to be a performer.
Mm.
What was the start of you going down this path?
Um, I I've always loved to sing. Like that was the came out of the womb singing. And I got cast as Amaryllis when I was like 6 years old in Music Man.
Ding.
Um, yeah,
Is that it, right?
and very much it was like literally picked off the schoolyard. Like it was a teacher who was like, yeah, I want, and he wanted to flip it so that Amaryllis was younger than Winthrop. And It's a very funny story in my family, but my mom sat my sister and I down, and my sister thought she was getting offered the part, and then she told us that it was me, and my sister cried, and I felt bad. But it all works out in the end.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I think for me, it was like this opportunity was the first thing that I did where I was like obsessed. I remember watching the movie like front to back multiple times. I did the exact same little thing where Amaryllis like cuts in front of the parade during 76 trombones next to Harold Hill. I was obsessed with being like, okay, I need to do what she did and get into this character. And as soon after that show closed, our school superintendent at the time took us to a local professional production of Annie, and I remember that changing my life.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I need to do this. And I do feel very grateful that like I had that formative opportunity and that formative experience at such a young age, because that hasn't been a question in my life in some ways. And I know that's really a privilege. Like a lot of people try to figure out what they want to do. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I think this is it for me, and I don't really have any other option. And frankly, in my adult life, anytime I've ever tried to go in a different direction, it always brought me back to this. So, yeah, I discovered Annie and broke my Annie CD because I listened to it so many times and belted it out, and eventually got nodes because I was doing it incorrectly.
Oh,
But
wow.
like, yeah, I I was obsessed, and I never really lost that. I try to hide it sometimes, but I've been obsessed with musical theater since then.
That's so cool. And so the natural progression to
Mhm.
continue it into school and all of that. And
Yeah.
then why specifically,
Yeah.
if musical theater is what got you in, and Annie changed so many lives, and specifically so many young little girls. That's a lot of people's origin story in this field. But you're going down the musical theater road, and yet you come to LA. Why? What made you choose LA over New York?
So that was like a big debate for me when I was kind of starting out, or at least I basically had just directed a production of Heathers. I was like, okay, I want to take off the directing hat for a while and like go focus. And I would say like I loved film and TV like as a second love soon after, musical theater and that kind of stuff. I think for a while I put myself into a box saying I can
Mm,
only do this. And I knew I wanted both. And to me, California felt like a better transition for me of moving away because I've always wanted to move back here. I was born in Northern California, but I always wanted to kind of live in LA, as well as, I still have family out here. You get a little more bang for your buck as well,
yeah,
of just living space. And I am one who, when I feel I am in a small space, I feel small.
yeah,
And so having that room to grow, having great weather that, I can skip out on a Minnesota winter, great. Like I don't get that in New York, like
yeah,
either. I knew that this would be a bit of an easier transition. I had more connections out here than I did in New York at the time. I'm never a never say never because I always have kind of been like, New York will be there for me whenever I choose to do that.
yeah.
Um, but I wanted my quality of life to be as best as possible. I went through some pretty serious health issues early on in my
Mm,
college career that has just shaped the way that I kind of view. I'm like, okay, quality of life is going to be really important for me, as well as, I'm going to have to take my responsibility on my health like way more serious than other artists, and it's a privilege to do that, and it's a
yeah,
hard thing to do that because I don't think the system is set up for artists to take care of their bodies because we're
no,
not getting the health care that we need, that kind of stuff, and I can't live without it. Like I literally can't do it. So it just makes my circumstances a little bit different. Like I'm like, okay, the tour life is not something that I really can do conducively. So when you start to kind of put all those factors together, it just kind of weighed more in favor of LA.
mm,
And I could pursue both and have fun and learn a lot. And that if New York ever called my name, it'd be waiting there for me.
yeah,
But also, like, just kind of want to be rich in New York instead of poor in New York.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I was poor in New
I,
York, still kind of poor in
yeah.
LA.
No, I mean I'm not swimming in money here, but there is some things that are like a little bit better quality of life. And I knew it wasn't going to be as much of like a jarring transition as New York would have been, and
Yeah,
I don't think I was ready for that. I think now I would be in a different place, but at the time, that was my first time really moving away from home. I'm very close with my family, and so I already knew that was going to be a transition for me. And so, yeah, I just figured why not go where I have the most connection, the most support, and the best quality of life, and kind
yeah.
of decided on that side.
That's wonderful. I'm glad you did because our paths have
Yeah,
crossed,
I
and
know.
I feel we're both. Well, I say for myself, better at that. I just wanted to better for that. Bring up something you said about conditions kind of forcing you into be into being more intentional in your career, which I think is something that I know and I've shared on here. About just throwing all the pasta at the wall and then looking down and realize there's nothing left to eat because in school and in this you're just so encouraged to give it all you got and give it all, and it's like, yes, within reason, and give it all it needs in the moment, I think, is a better way to phrase it. But I don't want to say like a gift or a blessing or whatever, but I just want to point out what you said about how it kind of forced you to be intentional and the benefits now moving forward. I'm not going to waste my time going on national tours or let alone auditions for that. So I think that's really cool. And just want to make clear to any listeners, you don't need to have a health scare to start thinking about being intentional. You don't need to be 41 and realize, holy shit, I, I got to change some stuff around. You can be intentional in at any time for any reason. And not to say that you and I were ever unintentional or this or that. Everyone's intentional in what they're intentional in. And you can even be more focused and see the other areas and how that will benefit you. So I was going to ask, like, how do you decide then working on shows? Like, you managed to come to Parade. You've led shows, you've been in ensembles, and there's so much. Like everyone's like thinks like, oh, you always want to be the star and role, but like there are some shows out there that are just like you want to be in the ensemble. Like the ensemble has like the producers, things like that. Like, is there? How do you decide? Like, what's a dream role that would most likely appear as part of the ensemble, and then what is a dream show that would be like I need to be center stage 11 o'clock number?
Oh, these are great questions. From an ensemble experience, I mean, I guess for me, Parade was one of those. Just because the ensemble is such a, I love it when shows build the ensemble into the storytelling. There's so many shows that like I did Shrek, and it was like literally we were on stage for the first 15 minutes. I took a 2 hour nap, and then I went back on stage for the last 20. And
Yeah,
I had a great time. It was like a, kind of a princess track, but that's to me not as like a thorough storytelling as it could be. And Parade, I think, kind of fights that
yeah,
in some ways because it is really essential. There's so many productions that have people on stage the entire time. Like it's the storytelling of it is it has to be ensemble piece because you have to understand what this town is. You have to understand the time that we're telling the story in. Um, and so, yeah, that's Parade has kind of been one of those ensemble tracks for me that I've always loved. That being said, I would love to do the ensemble of Wicked. Like
oh yeah.
anyone, I would move to New York today to do Wicked. Um, would love that. To me is again another. You can't have Oz without
Yeah,
Oz, and so
let's do that
Wicked's
together. I
just
think I think my partner will let me go for 6 months, just a quick
yeah,
Broadway
yeah,
contract. Like I'll do
yeah.
the governor. I'll be the governor's understudy. Whoever you
Yes,
want in the ensemble, like
I'm
get that
4'11". I'm a
Broadway
munchkin
credit.
already. Yeah, 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 yeah. Like I'm ready. We're good. I can do this. But yes, and I'm also open to national tours of Wicked. We just have to figure out my health issues.
Yeah.
But like, if you're willing to pay for that, great. But yes, so Wicked's always been on there. A dream role of mine that I still have not been able to finesse is Into the Woods. I want to play Little Red so bad.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's been like since I was like 15, wanted to do it, and it's just has never timing's never worked out.
I
So
know somebody who just recently started a theater company in LA, and their debut show is Parade, and they might be open to suggestions. I'm not
yeah.
sure. I'll
Well,
introduce you to her. I'll
I
introduce
was
you to
about to
her.
say it's funny because I have pitched Into the Woods. I've also pitched Beautiful, the Carole King musical, which Carole King is my end all be all music wise, but also that show for me, not to get too deep, but I fell in love with it when I really couldn't perform because I was going through a lot of health stuff and that kind of stuff. And I should just watch Jesse Mueller's Broadway vlogs. You remember the Broadway.com
Oh yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
vlogs they would do, and it was the height of what Beautiful was,
Hmm.
2015 kind of circa era. And for me, Jessie Mueller is like, I want to be like her,
Yeah.
just artist wise. And the way I think, a way, not that Broadway's lost this, it hasn't, but she's a true actor
Hmm.
in a way that like some of us are not trained to be, especially women aren't trained to be. We're trained to sing beautifully, and it's like that's the first thing that gets you in the door. And for me, her acting has always been the thing that pulls me in the most.
Yeah.
She has an incredible voice. That doesn't have to be stated, but it's one of those things where like her storytelling is amplified 10 times by the fact that she's such a strong actor. And I don't think that's always the first thing that people go to, or it's not always the thing that's prioritized. And I just love that about her work.
Yeah.
Um, and
She really
so
is the full package. Like, because
she
you could
is
say the exact same about her as a singer, because she can do pop, she can belt, she has a full classic soprano voice, and then
yes,
she can also be funny as a soprano because she when she did
so funny.
Carousel on Broadway, she was obviously Julie Jordan, but I think 2 years before with the Philharmonic,
Yes,
she was Carrie Pipperidge.
thank you. Oh my God. I feel
Like she
like
really is a whole
everyone forgets.
package. Yeah,
Yes. And she did Into the Woods, Theater in the Park. Theater in the Park.
Shakespeare in the Park.
I'm
Yeah,
Shakespeare in the Park,
2012.
sorry. But yes, she did like this dorky version of Cinderella, which I also die on this hill that if I see one more cookie cutter Cinderella story, like I want depth. I want somebody who isn't stereotypical. And she's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but she was this kind of like quirky casting that brought so much depth to the role and like dressed her up kind of like a dork and like all this kind of stuff. And I think it enlightens it because she's supposed to feel a little out of place.
Well, and you
She's supposed
want
to feel like she's trying on
you
something.
sorry.
Please.
Yeah, you want a no, sorry, the screen just froze. Like, oh no, no, don't not now. We're having such a good conversation. No, you want a Cinderella that is believable that she would run away from a prince, not someone if
Yes.
she's so sorry to use the word basic. You're
Yeah.
like, no, she wouldn't run
Yeah.
away. Like, you need someone that's quirky, out of place, awkward to be like, I can't be a princess. Like, this is
Yes.
absolutely nuts. Yeah, let's do Cinderella. Let's do Into the Woods.
I mean, I'm ready. I've
Okay.
known this role
I've already
since.
done. If we get the right lighting, I can reprise my role as Cinderella's prince, or I can just
Yeah.
do the baker, which is actually the role that I really want to do.
Oh, you'd
But the
be a
wolf was fun.
great baker.
The wolf was a lot of fun. Creepy,
Oh, sure.
creepy AF, but fun.
That that number is unsettling. I just saw a great production of Into the Woods, which our castmate Carter was in, and Kira were both in, who are both in Parade. But it was the first time I had seen Into the Woods in a hot minute. Most of the time, it was like every 2 years you would go see Into the Woods. But this had been a while, and I was
Yeah,
like watching the wolf number, and I was like, this is nuts. This is
yeah,
so much creepier than I remember it to be. But I think that show contains multitudes. Like as I go and I grow up, I thought I had it a handle on it when I was 15. I was like, I know what this is, right? And as you grow older, it takes on like these new shapes, and I think that's one of the
yeah.
beautiful things about the legacy of that show. Is like you find new depth to it wherever stage you are at in your life.
Exactly. You realize like, oh wow, Little Red's number is a little grown up. Like,
Mhm.
there's just so many things, and even just relationships with parents, relationships with yourself, and what you thought your life was going to be. It's a phenomenal show. Okay, done. We're doing it next
Yeah,
fall.
sorry. Yeah.
Settled.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
want to then just like talk a little more about Parade and like your experience in why people should come see this production that we're doing.
I think one thing that as a production we kind of talked about at the beginning was that like all these people feel justified in their actions. They're all just trying to do what they think is right. And for me, I see that mirrored in our world very harshly,
Yeah,
where people can be blinded in their own bubble and think that they are fighting for something good when maybe it's really not. Um, and that even though the core of what you feel is justified or moral, what you feel is morally right, doesn't mean you're always um, correct. And I think the biggest thing that this show teaches us is like empathy has to be the forefront of what we do with everything.
yeah,
We have to take a moment back from our emotions and see people as people before we see situations as situations. I
Yeah.
think we get caught up in the politics of a lot of things. We get caught up in the violence of a lot of things. And there is, and we can't not negate that. But at the same time, this is human against human. We have to approach it from a place of empathy to start, because that's the only way we're going to get true justice, and not seeing each other as other.
Yeah.
And I think for me that is the most true thing about our show, and then also the most true thing about the world today is that,
Yeah.
like, we have a really hard time seeing each other as who we are, humans first, who have loves and faiths and upbringings that maybe keep us blindsided. But the moment we can kind of lift that off of ourselves, we might be able to actually work something out. And so I think that's the biggest thing, at least in my engagement into this show. This has reminded me that we're not going to agree, we're not going to maybe find common ground, but we can work together to find a good solution. And this story is, the reason why it's important to keep that as our mission, because in the end, it just ends in destruction if we don't.
Exactly. But well, more to say. I think that was a brilliant case for this. And also, there is just, on top of all that, there is just a beautiful score. And so, like I said earlier, so much heart on that stage and so much great storytelling. So, just a reminder, uh, October 23rd through November 2nd at the Electric Lodge. Tickets are available at paradetickets.eventbrite.com. $25. What a deal. And you should come see us and see a little bit here. That's her nickname.
It is my nickname.
She didn't know, but it's her nickname on the show. And I can't, just you're someone that, like, yes, we made eye contact, yes, we connected immediately, but you're also someone that is dangerous to make eye contact with, because I feel like you and I observe the same silliness and ridiculousness that just naturally occurs in any
Yes.
rehearsal
Yes.
process, and you and I
1,000%.
clock, and it's just like we naturally turn to each other like, yep, you saw, okay, we saw, cool, 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 cool. And it's a little dangerous, because then it's like,
It
nope, I
is.
got to be serious now. So um
Yeah.
come see us try and make each other break on stage. But also, I want people to know, separate of seeing you on stage and parade, how can people find you, follow you, support you, and see all your ongoings?
Oh, that's very sweet. Yeah, you can follow me at Megan L. Roddy on, like, all platforms. I'm on TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. Um, no upcoming projects on the horizon yet, but I am going to go to Europe just like a week after we close this show. And so I'm excited to see some good theater and hopefully share some content there where it's like, okay, we can keep talking about this. And yeah, I am just grateful for you and having time to talk with you today. It's just been so fun. And I'm just, like, grateful for this process because I think it brought a lot of really wonderful people together.
Yeah,
But I'm just very glad that we connected. So,
well, the feeling is exactly mutual.
oh, thank
Before I let you go,
you. Yeah.
I like to end the show the same way every time, because
Right.
having worked in restaurants, uh, pursuing careers in theater, we know that people have not no shame, but no problem in sharing the bad news and saying what they didn't like and what they don't enjoy, and don't
Sure.
always take the time. Like, it's like, oh, that was a wonderful experience, and it's like, and we feel that it's a wonderful experience, but we don't aren't always driven or compelled to share that with the people that need to know it. So when I have a good time at a restaurant, when I have a good time at work, when I have a good, and I like to let the people that should know that, hey, your staff here is phenomenal. Hey, this coworker of mine, just so you know, like, maybe keep a lookout for them, because they're doing wonderful jobs, and maybe their schedule should reflect that. So who is someone in your life, on stage, behind a host stand, in your personal life, that has made a tough shift easier for you, and you just want to shout them out today?
That's a great one. I probably will have to say my baby sister.
Hmm.
She's not a baby. I say that,
I know.
but she's 20, no, 19 years old, almost 20. And so you know, she has been really supportive of my career since the beginning, but she has been very good about, even when I like call her in passing and I can't make contact with her and that kind of stuff, she's like, "Hey, I'm so proud of what you're doing. I love you. I'm sending you a text just to say that, and that, no matter what, we can try to talk, blah 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 date, but like, um I just hope everything's going well." And she's just one who checks in very regularly, and I just really appreciate that about her, because that's not a quality that you find in a lot of young people. And I think that's why she's so special. It's because she really takes care of the people around her.
That's wonderful. What's her name?
Catherine.
Catherine. Well, there you go, Catherine. This
Yeah, there you go,
episode is
Catherine.
dedicated for you. Thank you for all that you do to make our tough
Yes.
shifts easier. Clearly, the world needs more people like you. This has been another episode of Tough Shift. Just remember, tough shifts build character, and character is what brings your story to life. Take care. Tough Shift was created and hosted by Patrick Murtagh. It was recorded on Riverside and distributed with Buzzsprout. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review and maybe a comment or two. And remember, tough shifts build character, and character is what brings your story to life.